Michael's phone buzzed in the dead of night. I can't keep hiding. At 38, he'd buried his truth to survive a small town's judgment. Now, at a remote Asheville cabin, he meets Ryan, a fearless artist whose spark cracks Michael's guarded heart. A late-night talk ignites something forbidden, yet undeniable. But with whispers of disapproval lurking, can Michael risk everything for a chance at love? Michael stared at the text, his thumb hovering over the screen. The words burned into him, a reminder of the life he'd left behind in his small North Carolina town. He'd come to this mountain cabin in Asheville to escape the whispers, the sidelong glances, the weight of a secret he'd carried since he was a teenager. At 38, he'd built a life as an architect, respected but solitary, always careful to keep his true self locked away. The cabin retreat was supposed to be a break, a chance to breathe. But that text from an old friend, someone who'd once known his secret, stirred a restlessness he couldn't shake. He tossed the phone onto the bed and stepped outside, the cool night air biting his skin. The group he'd come with, colleagues and a few friends, was gathered around a fire pit, their laughter echoing through the trees. Michael lingered at the edge, watching the flames dance. That's when he saw him. Ryan, a 25-year-old artist invited by a mutual friend, Sarah. Ryan's ease caught Michael's attention, his quick smile, the way he spoke without hesitation, unburdened by the need to hide. "Mind if I sit?" Ryan's voice broke through Michael's thoughts. He stood close, holding a mug of coffee, his presence somehow both bold and inviting. Michael nodded, gesturing to the empty chair beside him. "Go for it." They sat in silence at first, the fire crackling between them. Ryan sipped his coffee, then leaned forward. "You don't talk much, do you?" His tone was light, teasing, but his eyes held a curiosity that made Michael's pulse quicken. "Not really," Michael replied, forcing a casual shrug. "Just here to unwind." Ryan tilted his head, studying him. "Unwind, huh? You look like you're carrying the weight of the world." The comment hit closer than Michael expected. He laughed, but it came out strained. "You're observant." "Part of being an artist," Ryan said, his voice warm. "I notice things, like how you're here but not really here." Michael's instinct was to deflect, to retreat behind the walls he'd built over years of hiding his identity. But something in Ryan's openness disarmed him. They talked, first about the retreat, then about art, then about life. Ryan spoke of his work, his travels, his refusal to let anyone define him. "I came out at 18, he said, unprompted. "Best decision I ever made. No more pretending." Michael's chest tightened. He'd come out to his family at 20, only to be met with silence from his parents and a door slammed by his brother. He'd learned to hide after that, to blend in, to avoid the judgment of a town where different was a dirty word. Ryan's freedom felt like a world he could only dream of. "You make it sound easy," Michael said, his voice quieter now. "It's not," Ryan admitted, "but it's worth it. Hiding eats you alive." The fire had died down, and most of the group had drifted inside. Michael and Ryan stayed, their conversation stretching into the night. Ryan's stories, of painting in New York, of standing up to bigoted critics, drew Michael in, stirring a longing he hadn't felt in years. For the first time, he wondered what it would be like to live without fear. As they stood to leave, Ryan paused, his hand brushing Michael's arm. "You should let yourself feel something real, Michael. Life's too short for anything else." The touch lingered, electric, sending a jolt through Michael. He froze, caught between the urge to pull away and the pull to stay. Ryan's gaze held his, steady and unafraid. And in that moment, Michael felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. "I'll see you tomorrow," Ryan said, his voice soft but certain, before walking into the darkness. Michael stood alone, his heart racing. The air felt heavier now, charged with possibility and risk. He wanted to follow Ryan to chase that spark, but fear clawed at him. What would the others think? Sarah had already raised an eyebrow when she saw them talking earlier, her just checking in laced with suspicion. Michael knew the group, his colleagues, his friends, weren't cruel, but they came from the same world he did, one where whispers could ruin reputations. Back in his room, he replayed Ryan's words, "Life's too short." He thought of the years he'd spent hiding, the relationships he'd avoided, the loneliness that had become his default. Ryan was different, unafraid, unapologetic. But Michael wasn't Ryan. He'd built a life on caution, on fitting in. Could he risk it all for a connection that felt so dangerous, so real? The next morning, he spotted Ryan across the breakfast table, laughing with Sarah. Their eyes met, and Ryan's smile was like a challenge, daring Michael to step out of the shadows. Michael's grip tightened on his coffee mug. He wanted to talk to Ryan again, to feel that spark, but the weight of judgment, real or imagined, held him back. As the group planned a hike, Ryan fell into step beside him. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, meant only for Michael. "Yeah," Michael lied, avoiding his gaze, "just thinking." "About last night?" Ryan's tone was gentle, but there was an edge of hope in it. Michael's throat tightened. He wanted to say yes, to admit how Ryan's words had shaken him, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "Maybe." Ryan's hand brushed his again, brief but deliberate, and Michael's heart pounded. The group was just ahead, their voices carrying through the trees. If anyone turned, they'd see. The risk was real, but so was the pull toward Ryan. That night, alone by the fire again, Michael made a choice. He found Ryan sitting alone, sketching in a notebook. Without a word, Michael sat beside him. Ryan looked up, his eyes searching. Michael took a breath, then leaned in, his lips meeting Ryan's in a tentative, fleeting kiss. It was over in a second, but it felt like a line crossed, a door opened. Ryan's smile was soft, unguarded. "Took you long enough." Michael laughed, a mix of relief and fear. "I'm new at this." But as they sat there, the fire casting shadows around them, Michael felt the weight of eyes. Sarah stood in the distance, watching, her expression unreadable. The spark with Ryan was real, but so was the world waiting to judge. And Michael knew this was only the beginning. Michael's heart hadn't stopped racing since that fleeting kiss by the fire. Ryan's lips, warm and certain, had unlocked something in him, a longing he'd buried for years. But as dawn broke over the Asheville cabin, the weight of what he'd done settled in. He'd crossed a line, and the world he'd carefully navigated for decades felt ready to judge. The morning was crisp, the group bustling with plans for a day hike. Michael kept his distance from Ryan, his mind a tangle of desire and dread. He caught Ryan's gaze across the breakfast table, a silent question in his eyes. But Michael looked away. Sarah's watchful stare from last night lingered in his memory. She hadn't said anything, but her raised eyebrow spoke volumes. In their small town, whispers spread fast, and Michael had spent his life avoiding them. Ryan caught up with him as the group set out on the trail. "You're quiet today," he said, his voice low, meant only for Michael. Regretting last night? Michael's stomach twisted. No, he said too quickly, then softer. It's just complicated. Ryan nodded, his expression unreadable. I get it. But you don't have to hide from me. The words stung, echoing Michael's own fears. Hiding was all he knew. Hiding from his family, who'd cut him off after he came out at 20. Hiding from colleagues, who assumed he was just a private bachelor. Hiding from himself. Ryan, with his unapologetic confidence, was a mirror to everything Michael wasn't. Yet that kiss had felt like freedom, however brief. They walked in silence, the group's chatter fading as they lagged behind. Ryan's hand brushed Michael's, a deliberate graze that sent a jolt through him. Meet me tonight, Ryan murmured, after everyone's asleep. Just us. Michael hesitated, the risk flashing through his mind. Someone could see, someone could talk, but the pull toward Ryan was stronger. Okay, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the crunch of leaves. That night, after the group had scattered to their rooms, Michael slipped outside. Ryan was waiting by the fire pit, the embers glowing faintly. They sat close, their knees brushing under the cover of darkness. I've been thinking about you all day, Ryan said, his voice steady but laced with vulnerability. I don't want to push you, but I feel something here, don't you? Michael's throat tightened. I do, he admitted, but I'm scared. People talk, Ryan. I've seen what happens when they do. Ryan's hand found his, fingers intertwining. Let them talk. I'm not ashamed of this. Are you? The question cut deep. Michael wanted to say no, to match Ryan's courage, but years of caution held him back. It's not about shame, he said finally. It's about surviving. Ryan's grip tightened. You're surviving, not living, there's a difference. Before Michael could respond, a rustle broke the silence. Sarah stepped into the glow of the fire, her eyes narrowing as she saw their joined hands. Didn't mean to interrupt, she said, her tone clipped. Just checking in, Michael. You've been distant. Michael pulled his hand away, his pulse spiking. Just talking, he said, the lie bitter on his tongue. Sarah's gaze lingered, skeptical. Right. Well, people notice things. Be careful. She turned and left, her words hanging like a warning. Ryan looked at Michael, his expression a mix of frustration and hurt. You're still hiding, he said quietly. I thought last night meant something. It did, Michael said, his voice breaking. But I can't just be like you. Not yet. Ryan stood, his shoulders tense. I'm not asking you to be me. I'm asking you to be honest. With yourself, with me. If you can't, maybe this was a mistake. The words hit like a punch. Michael watched Ryan walk away, the distance between them growing with every step. He wanted to call him back, to say he'd try, but fear kept him silent. The fire dimmed, and Michael was left alone, torn between the safety of his old life and the pull of something new. The next day, the tension was palpable. Ryan kept his distance, his usual warmth replaced by a guarded coolness. Michael tried to focus on the group's activities, hiking, laughing, pretending everything was fine, but Sarah's warning echoed in his mind. He caught her watching him during lunch, her expression unreadable. Another friend, Tom, pulled him aside. You and Ryan seem close, he said, his tone casual but probing. Everything okay? Michael forced a smile. Yeah, just friends. Tom nodded, but his eyes lingered, and Michael felt the weight of scrutiny. He'd spent years avoiding this, questions, assumptions, judgment. Now, one kiss had unraveled his carefully built walls. That evening, Michael found Ryan alone, sketching by the trailhead. He took a breath, steeling himself. "Can we talk?" Ryan set his sketchbook down, his gaze wary. "Depends. Are you going to keep pulling away?" "I don't want to," Michael said, his voice raw. "But I need time It's new for me. I've spent my whole life hiding who I am. You make me want to stop, but I'm terrified." Ryan's expression softened, but only slightly. "I'm not asking for a public declaration. I just need to know you're in this with me. No more lies." Michael nodded, his chest tight. "I'm trying, I promise." Ryan studied him for a moment, then stepped closer, his voice low. "Then meet me tonight. Same place. Let's figure this out together." As Ryan walked away, Michael felt a flicker of hope, but Sarah's warning and Tom's questions gnawed at him. The secret was growing harder to keep, and the stakes were climbing. He'd taken a step toward Ryan, toward truth, but the path ahead felt like a tightrope. One wrong move, and everything could fall apart. Michael's hands shook as he stood outside the cabin, the night air sharp against his skin. He'd promised Ryan they'd meet again, a chance to prove he was ready to face his fears. The kiss they'd shared 2 nights ago still burned in his memory, a fragile promise of something real. But the weight of Sarah's warning and Tom's probing questions pressed harder, each glance from the group feeling like a spotlight on his secret. He took a breath and stepped toward the fire pit where Ryan waited, determined to hold on to the spark between them. Ryan sat on a log, his posture relaxed, but his eyes searching as Michael approached. "You came," Ryan said, a cautious smile breaking through. "I wasn't sure you would." "I said I would," Michael replied, sitting close. Their knees brushed, a small gesture that sent his pulse racing. "I meant it, Ryan. I'm trying." Ryan's hand found his, fingers lacing together. "That's all I need to hear." They talked quietly, their voices blending with the crackle of the fire. Ryan shared more about his life, his art, his struggles, the freedom he'd found in living openly. Michael listened, torn between admiration and envy. Ryan's courage made his own hesitation feel like cowardice. The moment was shattered when Ryan's phone buzzed on the log beside them. The screen lit up, revealing a message. "Miss you. Can we meet tomorrow?" The name attached, Jake, hit Michael like a blow. He froze, his mind racing. Ryan grabbed the phone, his expression shifting to panic. "It's not what you think," he said quickly, but the words sounded hollow. "Who's Jake?" Michael's voice was tight, barely controlled. He pulled his hand away, the warmth of their connection replaced by a cold knot in his chest. Ryan hesitated, his silence damning. "He's someone I used to know," he said finally. "We've been texting, but it's nothing serious. I didn't think—" "You didn't think?" Michael cut him off, his voice rising. "You pushed me to be honest, to risk everything. And you're texting someone else?" The betrayal stung, echoing the rejection he'd felt when his family turned their backs on him years ago. He'd let Ryan in, let himself hope, and now it felt like a mistake. "It's not like that," Ryan said, his tone desperate. "I got scared, okay? You keep pulling back, and I started doubting if you'd ever be all in. Jake was just a distraction." Michael stood, his fists clenched. "A distraction? I've been tearing myself apart, trying to be brave for you, and you're hedging your bets?" The hurt was raw, a wound ripped open from years of hiding. "I trusted you." Ryan reached for him, But Michael stepped back. "Michael, please, I messed up. I don't want Jake. I want you." But Michael couldn't hear it. The pain was too sharp, the fear too loud. He turned and walked away, the fire's glow fading behind him. Back in his room, he sat on the edge of the bed, his mind replaying every moment with Ryan. The kiss, the talks, the hope he'd let himself feel. It all felt like a lie now. He'd spent years guarding his heart, and the one time he let it open, it shattered. The next morning, Michael avoided the group, skipping breakfast to walk the trails alone. The forest was quiet, but his thoughts were chaos. He remembered his family's rejection, his mother's tears, his brother's slammed door. He'd learned then that love came with risks, and Ryan's betrayal confirmed it. Yet a part of him ached for what they'd had, however brief. Was he wrong to walk away? Sarah found him by the trailhead, her expression softer than before. "You look like hell," she said, sitting beside him. "What happened with Ryan?" Michael hesitated, the truth caught in his throat. "It's complicated," he said finally. "I thought I could trust him, but I was wrong." Sarah nodded, her voice gentle. "I saw you two last night. I won't lie. People are starting to talk. But you don't have to go through this alone. Whatever's going on, you're still you." Her words were kind, but they didn't ease the ache. Michael had spent so long hiding, and now, when he dared to step out, he'd been burned. He thanked Sarah and walked back to the cabin, his resolve hardening. Maybe it was better to stay guarded, to keep his heart safe. But as evening fell, Ryan approached him outside the cabin, his eyes red-rimmed. "I ended things with Jake," he said, his voice raw. "I told him there's nothing between us. I was wrong, Michael. I got scared because I've never felt this way before. I don't want to lose you." Michael's chest tightened, torn between anger and longing. "You hurt me," he said. "I don't know if I can trust you again." "I know," Ryan said, stepping closer. "But I'm here and I'm not giving up. Tell me what I need to do to fix this." Michael looked into Ryan's eyes, searching for sincerity. The spark was still there, buried under the pain. He wanted to believe in it, to believe in them, but the betrayal lingered like a shadow. "I need time," he said finally. "I can't just forget this." Ryan nodded, his shoulders slumping. "I'll wait, however long it takes." As Ryan walked away, Michael felt the weight of his choice. The group's voices carried from inside the cabin, unaware of the storm in his heart. He'd opened himself to Ryan, only to be betrayed. But Ryan's plea stirred something in him. A faint hope that maybe, just maybe, they could rebuild. But first, Michael had to face his own fears, his own past, and decide if love was worth the risk. Michael stood alone on the Asheville cabin's porch, the night sky heavy with stars. Ryan's betrayal, those texts from Jake, still burned, a wound that echoed the rejection he'd faced years ago from his family. He'd let Ryan in, dared to hope, only to feel foolish for trusting. Now, Ryan's plea for forgiveness lingered in his mind. "I'll wait, however long it takes." But could Michael let go of the hurt, or would fear keep him locked in solitude? The group's laughter drifted from inside, a stark contrast to the storm in Michael's chest. He'd avoided Ryan all day, skipping group activities to wander the trails alone. Each step brought memories of his parents' silence when he came out, of the years he'd spent hiding to avoid judgment. Ryan had made him feel alive, but the betrayal reminded him why he'd built those walls in the first place. Love was a risk, and he wasn't sure he could take it again. Sarah found him on the porch, her presence steady but cautious. "You're hiding out here," she said, leaning against the railing. "Still about Ryan?" Michael nodded, his throat tight. "I thought I could trust him. I was wrong." Sarah's gaze softened. "You're not wrong to want something real, Michael. I've seen how you light up around him. Don't let fear steal that from you." She paused, then added, "I know people are talking, but most of us just want you to be happy. You don't have to carry this alone." Her words stirred something in Michael, a flicker of courage beneath the pain. He'd spent so long running from judgment, but Sarah's support made him question if he'd misjudged the world around him. "Thanks," he said quietly. "I just don't know if I can forgive him." "Forgiveness isn't about him," Sarah said. "It's about you, about choosing to live instead of hiding." She left him with that, her words echoing as the night deepened. Michael's thoughts turned to Ryan, his openness, his regret, the way he'd bared his own fears. Maybe Ryan's mistake wasn't the end, but a crack in both their armors. Michael had a choice: retreat to safety or fight for something worth having. The next morning, Michael found Ryan by the trailhead, sketching alone. His heart pounded as he approached, but he forced himself to speak. "We need to talk." Ryan set his sketchbook down, his eyes wary but hopeful. "I'm listening." Michael took a breath, the words heavy. "What you did hurt me. It made me feel like I was just another option. But I'm tired of running from what I feel. I want to believe you're sorry, but I need to know this is real." Ryan stood, his voice steady but raw. "It's real, Michael. I ended things with Jake completely. I was scared. Scared you'd never be ready to be open. Scared I'd lose you. I messed up, and I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." Michael studied him, searching for a lie, but finding only sincerity. The pain was still there, but so was the spark they'd shared, fragile but undeniable. "I'm not promising it'll be easy," Michael said, "but I'm willing to try. No more hiding, though. I can't do that anymore." Ryan's face lit up, a cautious smile breaking through. "No more hiding. I'm in, Michael. All the way." They stood there, the distance between them shrinking as they spoke. Michael shared his past, the rejection from his family, the years of silence that had shaped him. Ryan listened, his hand brushing Michael's in a quiet gesture of support. For the first time, Michael felt unburdened, like he could breathe without the weight of secrets. But the moment was tested that evening. At dinner, Tom pulled Michael aside, his tone sharp. "People are noticing you and Ryan," he said. "You sure you want to go down this road? It could get messy." Michael's pulse quickened, the old fear rising, but he thought of Ryan's promise, of Sarah's words, of his own resolve. "It's already messy," he said, his voice firm. "But it's my choice." Tom's expression softened, surprised but respectful. "Fair enough. Just be careful." As the group gathered around the fire later, Michael felt the weight of eyes on him. Ryan sat across from him, their gazes meeting through the flames. Michael didn't look away this time. He stood crossing to Ryan's side and sat close, their shoulders brushing. It was a small act, but it felt monumental, a step toward living openly, despite the risks. Sarah caught his eye, offering a subtle nod of approval. Others glanced their way, some curious, some indifferent, but no one spoke against them. Michael realized the judgment he'd feared was less suffocating than he'd imagined. The world hadn't ended when he'd chosen to be seen. Ryan leaned close, his voice low. "You okay?" Michael nodded, a quiet strength settling in him. Yeah, I think I am. The fire crackled as they sat together, the night stretching out before them. Michael knew the road ahead wouldn't be simple. Trust was fragile, and the world could still judge. But for the first time, he felt ready to face it. Not alone, but with Ryan by his side. The betrayal had shaken him, but it had also forced him to confront his own fears. And in that reckoning, he'd found something worth fighting for. Michael woke to the soft hum of dawn outside the Asheville cabin, his mind still reeling from the choice he'd made the night before. Sitting by the fire with Ryan, their shoulders brushing in front of the group, he'd taken a step out of the shadows. Ryan's betrayal had cut deep, but his remorse and Michael's own resolve had sparked a fragile hope. Today was their last day at the retreat, and Michael knew it was time to decide: hold on to fear or embrace the life he wanted. At breakfast, the group buzzed with plans to hike a final trail. Michael felt the weight of eyes, Tom's cautious glance, Sarah's quiet support. But no one spoke of him and Ryan. Ryan sat across from him, their gazes locking briefly, a silent promise to face this together. Michael's heart pounded, not with fear now, but with a determination he hadn't felt in years. He was done hiding. As the group set out, Michael fell into step beside Ryan. "I meant what I said last night," he murmured. "No more hiding. But we need to be honest. About everything." Ryan nodded, his voice low. "I know I hurt you. I'm still sorry. But I'm here, Michael. I want this. Us." The sincerity in Ryan's words steadied Michael. They walked in silence, the group's chatter fading as they lagged behind. Michael thought of the years he'd spent burying his truth, the family he'd lost, the loneliness he'd accepted as normal. Ryan had shaken that foundation. And though the betrayal had stung, it had also forced Michael to confront his own walls. He wanted to rebuild, not just with Ryan, but with himself. The hike ended at a clearing with a view of the mountains, the group pausing to take it in. Sarah approached, her tone light but pointed. "You two seem good today," she said. "Glad you're figuring it out." Michael smiled, a weight lifting. "Trying to. Thanks for having my back." She shrugged, her eyes warm. "Someone's got to remind you you're worth it." That evening, the group gathered for a final dinner. Michael took a breath, his decision clear. As conversation flowed, he reached for Ryan's hand under the table, a small but deliberate act. Ryan squeezed back, his thumb brushing Michael's knuckles. When Tom glanced their way, Michael didn't pull away. "You okay?" Tom asked, his tone less sharp than before. "Yeah," Michael said, his voice steady. "I'm with Ryan. That's where I'm at." The table went quiet for a moment. Then Sarah raised her glass. "To being real," she said, breaking the tension. Others joined in, some hesitant, some genuine, but no one objected. Michael felt a rush of relief. He'd braced for judgment, but found acceptance instead. Later, as the group dispersed, Ryan pulled Michael aside. "You didn't have to do that," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I'm glad you did." "I needed to," Michael replied. "For me, not just for us. I'm tired of being afraid." Ryan's smile was soft, unguarded. "Then let's do this right. No secrets, no running." Michael nodded, the last of his hesitation fading. "Deal." The next morning, as they packed to leave, Michael's phone buzzed. A message from his brother David, whom he hadn't spoken to in years. "Heard you're at a retreat. Can we talk when you're back?" Michael stared at the screen, his chest tightening. He'd written David off after their falling out, but this felt like a crack in the door, a chance to mend what had been broken. He typed a quick reply, "Yeah, let's talk." On the drive back to town, Ryan sat beside him, their hands brushing on the center console. The road ahead felt uncertain, but for the first time, Michael wasn't afraid of it. He'd faced betrayal, fear, and the weight of his past, and he'd chosen to step forward. Ryan wasn't perfect, but neither was he, and that was okay. They'd rebuild trust together, one honest moment at a time. Back home, Michael invited Ryan to his place for coffee. They sat on the porch, the evening air cool and quiet. "What now?" Ryan asked, his tone light but serious. Michael thought of David's message, of Sarah's support, of the group's acceptance. "We keep going," he said. "We live, openly, and we figure it out as we go." Ryan's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. "I like the sound of that." As the stars emerged, Michael felt a peace he hadn't known in years. He'd spent so long hiding, fearing judgment. But now he saw a path forward. Not without challenges, but with hope. Ryan's mistake had tested him, but it had also pushed him to claim his truth. The world hadn't ended when he did. It had opened up. A week later, Michael met David at a cafe. His brother's apology was halting but genuine, a step toward healing. Michael didn't expect miracles, but it was a start. With Ryan by his side, he felt ready to face whatever came, family, society, or his own doubts. He'd chosen love, not just for Ryan, but for himself. And in that choice, he'd found freedom. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell. More stories are coming that will move you, inspire you, and challenge the way you see your own journey. Every story matters, and each one brings us closer to who we are meant to become.